UNRWA an enormous organization providing primarily providing uh, government-like public services in the domains of basic education, uh, primary healthcare services, relief and social services, microfinance, support with infrastructure, housing improvements, etc. And then whenever there is renewed conflict, emergency assistance is added to that. And the organization operates in the Gaza Strip, in the West Bank, but also in Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And these are the territories where 75 years ago, the Palestinian refugees who fled the first Israeli-Arab war ended up, and their descendants.
So Israel's ban on UNRWA has been in effect now. Are the impacts already being felt?
The impacts are immediately clear in East Jerusalem, where the legislation banning UNRWA has prohibited the agency because that is seen by Israel as part of its sort of sovereign territory, although not recognized by the rest of the world. In the other parts, UNRWA still operates, but Israeli officials are under instruction not to cooperate with the agency anymore. And that means that visa will not be renewed, permits will not be issued. There is a big question about whether the organization is able to pay salaries to the 17,000 staff in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. Whether imports can be taken into the territories and so forth. So the immediate effects in East Jerusalem, the organization still continuing to operate, but with a sort of a very dark cloud hanging in the sky with respect to the continuations of its operations there.
Now, Israel is saying that there are other organizations that are picking up the void that's left or will be left by UNRWA. Do you think that is the case on the ground?
Well, partly. I mentioned in my introductory comments that whenever there is renewed conflict, like the war in Gaza, UNRWA is the default largest emergency service provider, and that can be partly taken over by others, although those other organizations have been using the UNRWA infrastructure, the warehouses, the distribution center, the vehicles, the logistical routines and personnel also to deliver. So even there it is difficult, but the education services, the schools, the health centers, the regular relief services. No other agency has such services in its mandate, so that will be the big question mark for the weeks and months to see how that will play out. Now in Gaza, the education and the health sector have been largely demolished in the past 16 months. So the UNRWA teachers are sort of trying to improvise informal education initiative, reaching out their students through WhatsApp groups and so forth to do some basic teaching, even against all odds. In the West Bank, the schools are still open, and we have to see how that goes in the coming period.
Yes, and Israel's justification for the ban has been UNRWA's links to Hamas, which led to 9 staff being sacked last year because they may have been involved in the October 7 attacks. Has there been more developments on this front? Has anything else more been proven?
No, it hasn't. Israel has, these allegations against UNRWA did not start with respect to the 7 October attacks. The Israel has sort of had a hatred-love relationship with the organization almost since Israel occupied the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in 1967, and so it has regularly attacked the agency. With the current right-wing government, it seems that sort of the real aim of attacking the organization and now banning it is to try to get the refugee issue off the table. as an issue, still dividing the parties. Now, that is an illusion because the refugees were already there before UNRWA was created. Their rights are enshrined in international law, including UN resolutions, and that does not depend on the continued existence of the agency.
Yes, and how much would Gaza and in some degree the West Bank then depend on other national governments to step in and help rebuild what's been destroyed? I do know that Malaysia was one of the few countries that have come out and says that what they're going to go and rebuild, that is hospitals, that is schools, but we haven't heard that many from others from the international community. Is that what might be needed in this case?
Well, indeed. At the moment, we are fortunate there is a ceasefire in Gaza, and if it succeeds in turning that ceasefire into a permanent sort of end of this latest war, then indeed a massive recovery and reconstruction effort is needed. A lot of planning has already taken place, and many countries are sort of ready to support that effort, but whether it can materialize and how soon it can materialize depends very much on whether it will be succeeded in sustaining the ceasefire. Netanyahu is in Washington today, meeting with Trump, amongst other things, to discuss the second phase of that ceasefire and to sustain it. Trump also has ideas about moving the Palestinians out to Jordan and to Egypt as an alternative, which would amount to ethnic cleansing. So it's still very much open how things will play out with respect to the reconstruction of Gaza.
Yes, and finally, Dr. Lex, what do you think of the response by the UN and its Secretary General Antonio Guterres on UNRWA's ban?
Well, the response has been strong in the sense that the Secretary General, from sort of the passing of the ban, has made it clear that it is illegal. It's violating various provisions and conventions of international law, that UNRWA is irreplaceable, and that because this is the case, there should not really be planning for the day after, and that has in a way been problematic, because on the one hand, yes, it is important to do everything possible to try to bring Israel, even now that the ban has kicked in, to urge Israel to cease further implementation. On the other hand, if Israel goes ahead and realities kick in, one needs to plan for the day after, and I believe that that's where the Secretary General could have done more.
Okay, Dr. Lex Tackenberg, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
With pleasure.